up, fellas? Let me make sure you can see me all right. Yep. All right, cool, we're good. Today, a couple guys been asking me to make a video on fishing structure, so I'm going to do that for you guys. So check it out. First thing I do, I want to tell you on a Lowrance unit, I always keep my maps zoomed in as far as it can go. Always, I don't know what it is, 10 foot, 20 foot, whatever. It's pretty close to my waypoints, but I always set it as far zoomed in as I can go. I split my graph when I'm fishing structure, half down scan, half maps. That way I can see my waypoints. I know how far away I gotta be from them, and I can still see structure and fish that are around it. So what I normally do is, so if I have, right now I'm sitting about 10 feet, the tip of my boat is almost touching the waypoint. So my waypoint marker is right in front of me. So I know that piece of structure is right in front of me, all right? So I'm gonna throw past the structure, always throw past it. In this case, there's 2 stumps out here with some rock around it. First thing I'm gonna do, cast past the structure, let it hit the bottom. Obviously make sure you don't have a fish on your first cast when you're casting across it. And then you're just gonna drag whatever bottom bait you're fishing. See, I'm stuck on it right now, and it's just pop it loose. And then once you pop it loose, you wanna let it sit there for a second. Just a quick, short little second, and then you're just gonna continue to drag. Hopefully this wind isn't too bad on you guys. I know it's blowing. The more wind when you're fishing structure, the better, without a doubt. I'm gonna show you how my graph is set up in a second. I'll show you exactly how I set it up so you know. It's extremely important to cast past the piece of structure. All right, so let me show you real quick how I have it set up. There you can see I have, so the boat icon is going to show me which way my boat is facing. All right, so if I hit the trolling motor and turn around and see that, now I know I'm pointing directly at it. All right, so here's my waypoint right here. This is about how far I'm going to sit from my waypoint. Now if I'm fishing this specific waypoint, I'm going to sit to where the nose of the boat is touching. Now if I'm going to fish 426 right here, all right, we're going the opposite way now. All right, so let's say we're going to fish 315, right? All right, so I'm moving, I'm angled towards 315, okay? Now see, if I try to go zoom in any closer, I can't, because I'm already, see, I can back out, but that's how close I go, as far as it'll let me go. All right, now look, now I know the nose of the boat is sitting right next to that structure. I know it's sitting right out here. All right, so now the nose is touching it. This is how far I'm gonna sit from it before I cast to it. All right, so now see, now I'm touching it, so I know my waypoint is directly right here. So you know in that case you're directly over top of it. You don't want to be directly over top of it. You want to be about 10 feet from it so that you can make the best cast. All right, so now we're gonna fish these and see if anything's on them. But all right, so I got 315 right in front of me. So now I'm casting right to where my waypoint is. Try to cast a little bit past it, especially true when you're cranking. And I'll show you how I do it when I'm cranking too, just so you can get a good idea. But right now I'm using a jig, so you definitely want to work it slower. And with a jig, I mean, really all I do is just cast and drag. A lot of your bites will come on that initial fall, but not all the time. All right, so I got 2 other waypoints right up here. These are usually the 2 that are the juice. So basically, if I have a bank, you know, I'm not shallow, I'm 14 foot, but if I'm on a bank and I have several waypoints like that, clusters of them, I'm gonna do the same thing. So now I'm sitting in front of 2 other ones. I'm gonna throw right in between them and throw further past them. The reason for that is because if you're not advanced enough or you're not, or you're new to it, if you sit right on top of the waypoint, obviously you're too far from it already, or you're too close to it already. So you try to angle your boat into the wind, whichever way the wind's blowing, unless there's no wind. The reason why you want to cast past it is because then you know you're hitting the ideal target, the ideal cast for that target. So right now I'm on it, and I cast it and drug it about, 5 or 10 times before it got to it. That's just the best way that I found to do it, the most convenient, and it works the best, because I mean the first couple pulls after you cast past it, you can drag pretty fast until you get to the area that you're trying to fish. Then you can, once you start feeling that the structure, hard bottom or whatever it is, then you can slow down and slowly pull across it. And I try to envision like what my jig's doing, or whatever bait you're throwing, what it's doing. It's kind of the same concept. If you're going to be cranking, I like to sit. So the big thing with the crankbait is it's going to take 10, 15 turns of the handle before it actually gets down to the depth it runs. So right now I'm throwing a 5XD. It's a Strike King 5XD in a bluegill color. I'm going to sit the same distance away from my target, maybe even a little bit further. I don't want to be like right up on it, but I want to be close enough to where I know I can cast past it, but not close enough to where I'm right over top of it. And then I'm going to throw as far past it as I can, right? Then you're going to reel as fast as you can for the first 10 or 15 pumps. That'll make sure you get down to it. Then you'll start feeling the bottom, so you're going to slowly crank the reel at that point. See, I don't know if you can see my rod tip, but you can see it bouncing off of every little piece of rock that there is down there. That's exactly what you want to do. And a key to crankbait fishing is if you feel it start to tighten up, like not a fish bite, it starts tightening up, you're coming to a piece of cover. If you just stop the reel for a couple seconds and then start reeling again, you'll come up and over it instead of getting hung on it every time. So that'll save you a lot of money in crankbaits. If you pick up fishing line, throw it in the bottom of your boat, because there's 6 million of that dumb shit out here. But so same thing, all right? I'm throwing the waypoint 325. I'm gonna reel down real fast. The butt is in my shoulder. It always helps to put it in your armpit. All right, and then now I'm down on the bottom, so I'm slowly grinding again. You can even pull, help you feel a little bit. Slowly reel. Then if you feel like you're not making contact with the bottom anymore, then speed the retrieve up. Now, if you have a faster gear ratio and you're cranking with a 7-to-1 or even a 6-to-1, you don't have to crank quite as fast. But for cranking, I use a 7.6, more parabolic rod, like a medium action, so it has some tip, but still has that backbone you need to get those hooks in. 7.6, and then I use a 5-to-1 gear ratio. I think it's a 5 to 5-to-1. The reason for that gear ratio is it's kind of like a diesel truck as compared to a car, right? You have a lot of that torque, but you don't have the high speed. You know what I mean? You don't have so basically with the lower gear ratio, it's not going to wear you out at all. A little bit it'll wear you out, and just reeling, you get the feel for everything. You have to reel it faster, but it's going to make that crankbait move slow. All right, so cast it past your target, as far past as you can go. And now say my target is halfway between me and where I just threw. That's exactly where you want it to be. Because then by the time it gets down there, you're coming across that structure and you'll feel it hit. Like I said, you hit some structure, you just slow down and keep it going over top. Let it float up a little bit. Crankbaits float, so when you stop it, it's gonna float a little bit. Cranking, I'm always using 12-pound line, fluorocarbon. You gotta check your line a lot, because right here for the first 6 inches of the line, just check that every now and again, because that's where it's gonna get burred up the most, because this bait is constantly digging. When it's on the bottom, it's digging, so your line, you're pulling it this way, is gonna hit whatever structure first. So you gotta make sure you pay attention to that. All right, so I'll spin around and do it one more time. So I know I have 3 waypoints in this area, so I'm throwing in the general area but past it. All right, now I know I keep saying throw past it. That's super important, because if you throw on top of it, once you start reeling, you're gonna completely miss your target. It's so important that you're reeling halfway. You're casting, you know, double the distance, not halfway. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So again, so now I'm too far from this waypoint that's out here, right? So what's gonna happen is if I throw out there, right, I'm gonna completely miss that structure. Because, all right, now I'm reeling real fast to get it down there, and then I'm slowing down. By the time I get my crankbait, now my crankbait's already past that target and it never did hit it because it's on an angle like this, all right? So you want, if you throw past, then you're on that angle, you're gonna hit the bottom before it comes across that. Whereas if you throw like I just did, you're just gonna completely miss it. So I'm pretty sure you guys get the point of what I'm saying anyway. But so another big thing I do, right? So I just hit it one way that I just showed you, right? Now, normally I always start on the upwind side. So, or the downwind side. So I'm gonna be on the downside throwing to the structure. Now, if I don't get a bite going this way, then I'm gonna set up to where my waypoint is here, right? So I'm downwind from it right now. I'm sitting right here. Then I'm gonna try doing it across from it. Then I'm gonna try doing it upwind on the other side, and then, so you're making a complete circle around that structure. And it does not take long at all to do it. I mean, it might sound like it takes long, but it really doesn't. You can make a cast from this angle or two. It depends on how big the structure is too. I mean, if you're talking about a tree, it takes a little longer to fish it. Now, if you get hung up, while I'm hung up, I'll give you a little tip too. Doesn't always work, but it'll help save you some baits. Get on the trolling motor and get on the other side of the bait or the other side of the object that you threw. It sounds like common sense, but not everybody knows that. So if you're not pulling your line and flicking it off, then my bait's stuck right here on a piece of structure. I'm gonna get on the opposite side that I threw and pull it the other way and see it comes right out. Most of the time. It doesn't always come out, but most of the time that'll save you some baits anyway. With your jig, make sure your weed guard is spread out a little bit too. It's outside the hook, spread out, so it'll protect it a little bit more from getting stuck in the structure. But structure fishing is one of my favorite things to do, really. I mean, I don't always have the patience for it. Sometimes I get in too much of a hurry and I keep going, but it's definitely one of those things you got to have patience with. And as far as, like I said, how long I'm going to spend on each area, which is super important. I see it all way too much of somebody sitting on a spot for hours. It doesn't work like that here. Or really on reservoirs in general. It's not like you can sit on the same spot and wait for it to reload. It doesn't always work that way. I try to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes on one spot and then move on. Normally, you'll notice that they'll tell you pretty quick whether they're there or not. And when they're eating it on the initial fall, then you know they're really biting. But yeah, it's pretty simple. So like I said, I just circle around it. You can actually work outside of the structure zone first, or outside of that circle, and then work your way into the actual structure. But I prefer just to go right to the juice, make 2 or 3 casts to it, go on the other side of it, make 2 or 3 casts of it, go on the other side, make 2 or 3 casts, and then move on. And again, it also depends on what you're fishing. Some things aren't going to be one piece of structure. It's going to be a stretch that has hard bottom or shell or rock or whatever the case may be. And it'll take you a little bit longer because you got to drag the whole area of the surface to find where they're at. What I normally would do in that scenario is if I'm dragging an area and I get bit, I'm gonna mark where I got bit at, and kind of work off that. Try to figure out like, all right, well, what was here that, what's different about this spot that's holding them here, and then you kind of know what to look for from there on out if you get a couple bites doing it. This summer has been awesome. The water's come up a few times, so the fish have come up. Once that water stabilizes, then they'll move back down again to where they were living, and seems that would be the case right now. And you can catch big dogs in a hurry. Just the past 2 weeks, I've had 2 6s and several over 5. So those big ones are out here eating. It's August. It won't be long now before it'll be fall. So summer fishing, you can kind of take advantage of it while it's happening. You can, catch a bunch of them off of the same area. Normally, so if I'm gonna fish an area with structure, I'm gonna do exactly what I told you to. Right now I know that they're eating a jig because I had caught a bunch of them before I made the video, but if you don't know what they're eating, I'll normally, throw a crankbait, come through with a moving bait first, hit the area real good, and then turn around and throw a jig after that. And if they don't eat the jig, I might, if I go 2 or 3 hours without getting a bite on heavier lines, then I'll go down to a drop shot and really try to force them to eat, I guess. You can always get more bites on lighter line. It's just not always, it doesn't always matter, but seems like it does. If you can't get bit on anything else, they'll eat a drop shot. So I just wanted to make a short video to let you guys know, this is how I fish structure. I hope it helps some. If you have any questions, let me know. It'll be easier to answer that way. The biggest thing I would take out of this is how to position your waypoint to where your boat's sitting. And if you don't have a graph, you can always do what we did back in the day and line something up on the bank. You know what I mean? Like if there's a piece of structure there, you can see what tree or something is lined up with it, or is there a stick in the water that lines up with it. Then you know your lineup. Then you can kind of make a circle around it because you know the lineup. But yeah, the biggest thing with this is make sure you throw past your target and reel to your structure. A lot of times you'll miss that structure simply for that fact. So make sure that you're close enough to it to where you can cast past it, but not too far to where you're going to completely miss it. Now with a jig or something slow moving, if it's right, it doesn't matter where it's at because you're pretty much going to be able to hit it no matter what. I don't like it to be directly under the boat unless I'm dropping on them. So I like to, be a little distance away, but not everybody knows that. Most of you might already know this, but if not, I hope it helps. I hope you catch. When you're cranking and you're fishing structure, what you definitely always have to do, hold on, let me put my poles down. What you always have to remember to do is if you are fishing 12 to 14 foot, I'm gonna go with a 5XD because so you always want to fish a crankbait deeper than what you're fishing. You could even go as far as 10 to 14 foot, then you could go with a 5XD, which runs 15 foot. If I'm running anywhere, fishing anywhere, that piece of structure is in, say, 15 to 18, I'm gonna go with a 6XD, which runs 19 foot, all right? That's one super important thing. Make sure that your crankbait is running deeper than what you're fishing. With a square bill, it's really not going to matter as much. You don't need that digging bottom, but like something like a 2.5 or a 1.5, it's going to run 4 foot. So if you're fishing, the bank up into 3-4 foot, then a 2.5 would be perfect. Once you get a little bit deeper than that and you're in that 5-6 zone, I would throw a series 5. That's going to run 12 foot, 8 to 12 I think it is, and once you get up there, then you can get into the XD series that run a little bit deeper. But it's super important. I wanted you guys to know that while I was thinking about it before I forgot. You definitely don't want your bait to be riding above the structure that you're fishing. You want it to be on the bottom. You want it to be coming in contact with that structure so you guys can get that reaction bite. All right? See you.
15-pound cigar smackdown braid on all my spinning reel setup to either a 6, 8, or 10-pound top 2 meter, or now I've been throwing a lot of gold label since they came out with gold label. But the only exception on spinning rods or spinning reels that I don't throw braid to fluoro. I'll just go straight fluoro.
Straight fluoro for the 5 Fuck yeah. Fucking giant, dude.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.